Hello, beautiful people. This is Freedom Fighter. Thank you for tuning into our channel, Goldilocks Global Banking News. Everybody knows that Goldilocks is the #1 source for the RVGCR. People from around the world tune in to see what Goldilocks is sharing on the RVGCR. Don't miss your chance and get your latest updates every day. So like, share, and subscribe to this channel to get your daily podcast from the Goldilocks articles on the RVGCR. Brought to you by Freedom Fighter.
Hey fine folks, this is Freedom Fighter and welcome to Goldilocks Global Banking News. I'm your host. Beautiful people, today we have an update from Goldilocks showing us recent action with Iraq and the World Trade Organization. Also, the audits that are occurring within the United States that will prepare for the RV, because auditing real values and prices on assets is to make sure that when the RV happens, everything has real, correct, accurate prices, currencies, gold, silver, commodities, whatever it may be. Before that, I'm going to share something with you from one of our members in the Goldilocks QFS Dialogues room, where his wealth manager brought up currency exchanges to him first. Let's jump into it. Our member says, thank you also to Wiley and the support from you all. Thank you, Freedom Fighter. Thank you, Bambi, and also Mrs. Potato Head. He says, first meeting with a private wealth manager in a couple of weeks. The phone call was practically a carbon copy of how Wiley and Freedom Fighter described it. His reactions to the standard explanation were totally okay, not pushy at all. He says, I did make a point of saying that the incoming funds were 100% lawful and legitimate, and that I wanted to make very long-term generational investments, not spending the capital, he says. The wealth manager asked a few questions about my residency status, as I am an expat. He asked if he could send me a questionnaire and was happy for me to send him Wiley's questions by email. He had asked if it was an inheritance, which I sidetracked, and whether we were planning on moving to another country, as he could help, because they have offices in several other countries. I said we could talk about that another time with a view of optimism and also a tax situation, no problem. So we fixed the date for the meeting, he says. And just before he says goodbye, he says to me, quote, oh, and can I help you with all the currency exchanges, end quote. What the bleep bleep. Yes. So the wealth manager asked him before they hung up the phone if he could help him with all of his currency exchanges. And ladies and gentlemen, our member never mentioned currency to him. The wealth manager brought it up first. He says, I had not said a word about currencies, he says. Honestly, without the advice and the support in this group, I would not have been up to this, or I would have had made a total pig's ear out of it. I can't thank you all enough. That's what comes with lurking in the room, listening and learning and asking questions. There is so much valuable information here. God bless you all. Keep you posted after the meeting. Folks, you can join this gentleman. All he did was follow the 8 steps and the guidance that Wiley, myself, and the tribe, other members, have been able to do in the room to help him on his way. This member is actually in France. This is a global movement with the RV happening all over the world. you can join us. Let's jump into the updates by Goldilocks today. Right now, you may be aware the United States is going through audits through Doge. And so the United States is going through this audit because it's to determine authentic, real prices and values on everything and also what's being spent. Billions, trillions being spent recklessly. Trillions. Can you imagine trillions of dollars coming back into the coffers of the United States? Audits can be used to revalue a company's assets, folks, and audits can be used to revalue a country's assets. This is as a key part of an audit process, which essentially constitutes a revaluation of all the assets that a country has. So it's few parts that are important: asset verification, and also to determine the value of an asset. Now, the Central Bank of Iraq has formally announced the confirmation that they have successfully transitioned to connecting to international correspondent banks. You may ask, why is this so important? See, in December, Iraq disconnected from the electronic platform, which we told you in the beginning and in the middle part of 2024 that was going to happen. By them removing from the electronic platform and connecting to the international correspondent banks, folks, the international correspondent banks throughout the world that now Iraq is connected to, those correspondent banks will be responsible for being an intermediary or a middleman, if you will, between Iraq and every other country as the conversion of the Iraqi dinar occurs. For example, these correspondent banks, when Iraq does major transactions that needs the dinar to be converted in any other currency, the correspondent banks will be responsible for doing that. Because the correspondent banks are connected to other countries and other central banks around the world. So think of these correspondent banks as a pass-through, a bridge, if you will, between Iraq and another country, or the dinar and another currency. So we have the digital transformation of XRP that will facilitate the conversions of one currency, the dinar, into another, or all currencies. And we have the actual international banks that link the Iraqi dinar with other banks as well. Think of a multi-layer interconnecting process. You have the digital process, and you have the international correspondent banks who also are digital banks that will be able to convert the dinar to any other currency. Why is this important to us? You have to realize, for the value of the Iraqi dinar to increase in value, the dinar needs to move internationally throughout other countries based on the demand for it in order for it to go up in value. But in order for it to go up in value, the dinar must move through the banking systems globally. How does that happen? International correspondent banks. How does that happen? XRP. This is a multi-layer approach to move the dinar throughout the international banking systems. See, these international correspondent banks are existing banks that have been moving currencies throughout the world for many years. This is for the first time that Iraq has been able to connect to these international correspondent banks. What would the end result be? The movement of the Iraqi dinar internationally. These international correspondent banks will be responsible for moving the dinar throughout the world. It expands the dinar throughout the entire world. And being that these international correspondent banks, they have already been moving currency throughout the world, throughout the banking system for 40, 50 plus years, they are already compliant, regulated. All the tests have been made, done in order. For example, you don't think now that the dinar is moving through international correspondent banks, that at some point in time, they tested the dinar to move internationally at one point? This all occurred in 2024. This is why they were able to disconnect from the electronic platform and connect to the international banks in December. There are several currencies, added new currencies that the CBI has added to the flow of the international correspondent banks with the CBI, such as the Jordanian rial, the Saudi rial, the Turkish lira in euros as well. Iraqi banks can now use euros to trade with Turkey, not just with European Union countries. You may ask, why is this so important? Why is this relevant? Because this allows the dinar to move throughout the world in other countries, exchanging the dinar with other currencies such as the Jordanian rial, the Saudi rial, the euros. The dinar needs to move and interconnect with other currencies internationally so that it can ultimately move in itself throughout the international banking system. You may ask, why did the CBI expand their transfer options of the dinar? Folks, it's to diversify their trade throughout the world. The end result is the dinar is able to move in international trade throughout the world. Another reason is to streamline international transfers of what? The dinar. It's also to involve more banks in foreign currency exchange. More banks in Iraq that are moving the dinar through these international correspondent banks. This is also to strengthen Iraq's international presence and their practices. It's also to promote a stable and secure financial system within Iraq. Think of this as practice. Iraq is beginning to practice international transactions, which means they are practicing the conversion of the Iraqi dinar with other currencies throughout the world. When we exchange our Iraqi dinar for US dollars, wouldn't it be a beautiful thing that they have already practiced and prepared for exchanging from the dinar into another currency? That is what they're doing now. And as we mentioned several times that Goldilocks provided the information about an international consulting company named Oliver Wyman. Oliver Wyman is helping Iraq to do this. Oliver Wyman, the company, the international consulting company, is also a consultant for the World Trade Organization and many countries within the WTO. While Iraq is actively working to improve its financial system and establish international banking relationships, they are absolutely connecting to networks to allow their ability to fully go international with the Iraqi dinar. Recent developments in Iraq, and the CBI specifically, is showing that they are working to connect to more international correspondent banks. Think of, they are practicing more and more converting the Iraqi dinar to other currencies. In order for us to exchange from the dinar to the US dollar, there must be a warming up of the dinar in the global banking system. Why? Because the dinar was not and is not international just yet. But in order for the dinar to eventually go international, they must begin to practice international transactions. That is where they are now, and that is what they're doing. This is a requirement for them to also join the World Trade Organization, because once they join the World Trade Organization, all their trade within the 100+ countries within the WTO will be international. Don't you think they must practice this and be prepared so that there isn't many hiccups or issues when they go international? So once they quote unquote flip the switch, there's no turning back. Now that they're listed in a network of correspondent banks, they are now beginning to practice international transactions. There are a few things that Iraq must do to complete this process within the global or the international banking system. The World Trade Organization is also connected to these international correspondent banks. Think of the international correspondent banks as the bridge between Iraq and the WTO countries. You can see the pieces of this puzzle now interlinking. The CBI, the international correspondent banks, and the World Trade Organization all are connected and need each other in order for Iraq to go international, and also for Iraq to be a part of the World Trade Organization. In order for the dinar to convert to the US dollar and other currencies, the international correspondent banks are needed in order to do so. They are now connected. There are several other things like regulations and the fourth working party by the WTO that still must be completed in order for Iraq to fully go international. We also are awaiting for gold as well, and that is in motion because Iraq and other countries have been hoarding gold in preparation for the event. Stay grounded, stay in love.
Hello, beautiful people. This is Freedom Fighter. Thank you for tuning into our channel, Goldilocks Global Banking News. Everybody knows that Goldilocks is the #1 source for the RVGCR. People from around the world tune in to see what Goldilocks is sharing on the RVGCR. Don't miss your chance and get your latest updates every day. So like, share, and subscribe to this channel to get your daily podcast from the Goldilocks articles on the RVGCR. Brought to you by Freedom Fighter.